I have been working very hard to build my credit and stay on top of it because I know it's very important for my future as an investor and the expansion of my real estate portfolio. But I was wondering if you happen to know any tips that I can implement in order to increase my credit score almost instantly. If that's the dilemma that you're facing and you want to find out how to get there, well, let me tell you, you have gotten to the right episode because we're going to cover that topic today. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode at NOVARISE Invest. If this is your first time turning into this channel, well, let me tell you, this is your channel for real estate education. So back to the topic of credit, right? I know I talk a lot about credit and more questions keep coming from you. So thank you very much for letting me know. This is actually an episode that has been requested by a lot of you because you're all looking to make that quick improvement in order to hopefully qualify for a much better rate when it comes to buying a house, or maybe just qualifying for buying a house overall, right? So what we're going to do is that we're going to go over 5 very good implementable tips that you can do and follow in order to help you improve your credit almost like this instantly. And for that, what we're going to do is to go straight into our tablet. All right, so first things first, before we dive into the tips that you can actually implement, what we're going to do is to basically cover the breakdown of the FICO score. So we have the FICO score right here, and this is in essence what makes up the FICO score. So we have 30% here, and that's the debt that you have. We also have 35%. And that's the timely payment. So we have payments here whenever you pay on time. Then the next thing, it's 10% here, and that refers to credit mix, right? And then we have 15%. That means the length of your credit. So whether you have it for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 years. And then 10%, it's in reference to new credit, right? New credit. Every time you apply for a new credit card. So now that we know this, we're going to move on to tip number 1. So the very first tip that you can implement to make your credit score jump right away is by just simply calling the bank and request a line increase. So request a credit line increase. How is that possible? How does that help me? Well, it's very helpful to understand why. So let's assume you have a total credit line of $1,000. And out of that 1,000, you wind up using 500. So that means that 500 out of 1,000, that means you owe 50% in debt, right? So that's how the creditors are looking at it. But if you request a line increase, so you call the 1-800 number in the back of this card and you request a line increase, and if you get approved, you can, in essence, let's say, for example, get approved for 5,000, but your debt, it's the same. It's 500. So when you're taking 500 in comparison to 5,000, that means your debt ratio dropped 10%. So we went from 50 to 10% almost instantly, right? Now, a lot of you might be wondering, well, whenever I request a credit increase, that means they're going to have to pull my credit. Isn't that going to hurt my credit? Yeah, but it's kind of like a transaction that is going to have a cost to something, right? So think about it this way. Whenever you go to the store to get ice cream, you have to pay $1 or $2 for the ice cream. So you pay $2 and in exchange, you get a delicious chocolate ice cream that you can enjoy and savor. So it's the same thing here. Every time you do request a credit line increase, they have to do a pull. A pull will only cost you about 2 points of your overall credit score. But if you do get approved to 5,000 and you manage to drop your debt ratio from 50 to 10%, that means your score is going to increase by 30%. So we're talking about double digits number, and what is only 2 points, right? So it's kind of like a transactional thing. It's a currency. Think about it this way, right? So that's with the credit line increase. Another tip that you can implement that's going to help you tremendously is just simply, and I know it can sound very confusing, it's by just simply requesting new credit cards. So apply for new credit cards. Why is that? It's the simple same analogy, right? So let's say, for example, you have 2 cars, 500 each. add up to 1,000. You owe 500, that means 50%, right? That's your debt. But if you have one car that you have 500, but then you apply for a new car where they approve 4,000, and then your total credit line is $5,000, then you manage to drop your debt from 50 to 10%. So it is the same analogy, only a different step that you're taking. So some people take one or the other. Some people take both. I've actually done both. I've done it both on the same day. And the reason why I do it on the same date is because sometimes the credit bureaus, they don't report that right away. So it gives you the flexibility to apply for more on the same day without it showing in your credit score. So that's one. Now, the third step, or the third tip that you can implement, and this will typically be used by people who have multiple credit cards and a lot of debt, and that's through the use of a personal loan, right? So you can apply for a personal loan and use that money to pay your credit card. Once again, I know it sounds a little confusing, but it is not as it seems. I know it might seem that, hey, wait a minute, I'm taking debt from one place to get rid of debt on another place. But with a personal loan, we're basically tackling this. We're addressing a good credit mix. Having a personal loan is a type of credit. Having a credit card is a type of credit. Having a car loan is a type of credit. Having a mortgage is also a type of credit. So when you have multiple type of credits and you're managing them in a very efficient way, by that I mean making payments on time, then you're showing the creditors that you're actually a very responsible person and that you can juggle around. You can actually multitask from one type of credit to another. And that only shows that you're versatile and smart and very diligent with that. And that, in essence, help you with your credit mix. So that's one. In addition to that, credit cards tend to be viewed as bad debt, and a personal loan tends to be viewed as not so much of a bad debt, right? So we're talking about degrees of how bad each one is. So credit cards are definitely bad in the eyes of a creditors. So if you manage to eliminate your credit card debt with a personal loan, now we're talking about a 30% increase in your debt, because now you're eliminating all that credit card debt and you're only having one loan to worry about and paying. And in addition to that, you're addressing the credit mix component of your FICO score. Hopefully you find that interesting and very helpful so far. And if you do not forget to hit the like button right here so you can help other people like you who are looking for information of this kind in order to achieve financial freedom. Now, moving along to the following tip, right? Tip number 4, and this one is a bit more complex, and that involves the strategy of an authorized user, right? So authorized user. So let's say, for example, you have your parents or an uncle or auntie or a cousin, brother, sister, partner that has an excellent credit score, right? I'm talking, let's say, at least an 800 credit score. And so what you can do is just simply come up to them and say, hey, I would like to get your help by adding me as an authorized user to your credit profile. So what this does is that they're going to add you to their profile and they're going to receive a credit card. You're not going to get a hold of that credit card. And you should tell them that so that way they can trust you, because people tend to be very, very careful and very protective of their credit score, right? They don't want anybody messing with it because it takes just a second to destroy it, but it takes a long time to build it, right? So in order to gain their confidence, you can just simply say, hey, you can keep that credit card and you can destroy it. All I need is to be on your profile as an authorized user for an approximation of 2 months, right? So what this does is that when you're added to this person's credit profile, in this case, let's say your uncle, for example, your credit is going to start mirroring that person's credit. So if your credit score was a 600, it can help you bump your credit score depending on your profile, because as you can see, there are different factors in the FICO score. But let's say it goes up 100 points, which will bring it from 600 to 700. And that's like almost instant, right? And the good part about this is that your low credit score or your low credit profile would not be reflected in your uncle's credit score, right? So it's a one-way street, but it's definitely not a two-way street. And why? You might be wondering, why do you want to keep it up to 2 months? Well, circumstances changes, right? You don't know what your uncle might be into. Let's say, for example, your uncle could be doing great with an 800 score. Maybe a week later, he signs up for a business venture, one of those Ponzi schemes, and winds up losing a lot of money and perhaps even impacting his credit score. So if his credit score goes down, your credit is impacted as well. So you definitely don't want that to happen. And that's why I said a maximum of 2 months, because you also want to keep your credit under strong supervision, right? So your uncle can be very responsible, but hey, people make mistakes all the time, and you definitely do not want to be on the wrong side of the equation, and you do not want to pay for other people's mistakes, right? So that's number 4. It is a bit challenging to perform that one, but it's also one of the fastest. We're actually going from fastest to not so fast. So number 4, it is also one of the fastest ways to increment your credit score. However, it is not the easiest because it involves someone else, and that person has to trust you, right? So if you cannot create that that trust vibe, then they're not gonna help you out to do that. And the last one, the last tip that I love to implement all the time is by using a balance transfer. And you might be thinking, okay, well, it just simply sounds like I'm moving debt from one place to another. Yes, you are. However, you're actually paying it down faster, which means you can help bring up your score a lot faster. So let's say, for example, if you have multiple credit cards, so let's say one credit card at 24.99%, and you're owing $10,000 in that credit card, you might notice that a big chunk of that payment, let's say you make a $500 payment every month, a big chunk of it, at least $200, is going towards interest. So that means only $300 is going towards the paying down of that debt. That only translates to you paying off that debt in a very, very slow time, right? So you definitely don't want to do that. So what a lot of people do, including myself, is that we take advantage of 0% credit cards, right? The ones with 0 APR. And what they do is that they give you an introductory rate, let's say 6 months, 12 months, sometimes even 18 months, to pay off a debt that you transfer into this card. So what I do is that once I get a hold of these 0% APR cards, I call this bank right here and I request a balance transfer into this bank right here. So that way I can pay that $10,000 debt without any interest. So it is definitely a slower way to increase your credit score, but it's one that it's proven and it actually does work, because now you're paying off your debt without having to worry about any interest. It is cheaper, and you also come out of that debt a lot faster just because of the fact that you don't have to deal with any interest. So you can easily reduce that credit card debt by sometimes even half the time if you become very aggressive with it and not adding more debt onto that card, of course. So that is pretty much all I have. I would love to read your comments. Please let me know which of these 5 tips you found the most useful for you and which one do you actually plan to implement, or whether you decided to implement a combination of a lot of them, and perhaps that helped you out a lot with your credit score. So that is pretty much all I have for you today. And while I still have you here, do not forget to check this episode right here. That's going to help you complement everything you've learned in this episode. And until then, take care. Bye-bye.